Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Quantum entanglement. That's a topic we've mentioned a couple times here on the show for the last years. I don't think we've ever talked about it in the brain, though. So this is going to be a little bit new. When I saw the post that you shared, Joel, on Facebook, it caught my attention. I mean, that's not something that you hear reported every day. Quantum entanglement in the brain. I mean, we hear about it in terms of being able to do it in theory. The theory's been talked about for quite some time. There have been a couple of experiments that have been done to show that it can be done long distance, but with machines. There's been a lot of speculation here on the show and other shows about, how this could be all working out spiritually and energetically and all that kind of thing. But in the brain, that's new. That's pretty
It is. And, I love the heading of the, sort of that it's an article and, it's a little post on, that I posted, and that it was a very exciting title.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the content wasn't as exciting as the title. It was just like, oh, okay. Did you read it or did you?
I did not. No,
Yeah,
I assumed that it was actually, useful.
Yeah. So it is useful. It got me thinking is why I liked it.
Okay.
But the actual stuff that they were talking about, I'm like, this is not what your title's suggesting. But, it did get my attention. So it was an effective title.
Yes.
But it was the idea of being quantum, the quantum and quantum physics in general is just bizarre. And basically they're talking about like the observer effect on things, where you, when the double slit experiment, when, photons react differently when they're being observed and not observed, which has been repeated thousands of times. It still baffles me.
Yeah.
Also, when two particles are considered quantumly entangled, no matter how far apart they are, if one is to change, the other one instantly changes, even if they were on the opposite sides of the universe.
Right. That's the part that really is amazing.
Yeah. So, but what it got me thinking when, if the brain becomes quantumly entangled with other energies or other people or, I'm wondering, and this is more just pure speculation because the title led to the speculation, is there are people we connect with, and there's people that you meet and you're automatically connected with. And it seems like, what is that about? Is there something going on? I know there's something going on, but is there an energy? Is there what could that possibly be that it makes it, you meet somebody for the first time and it feels like you've known them forever. And you automatically connected, you're around somebody, or you also, for me, I have, this has happened many times in my life. So, for example, I have a friend, several friends that I don't hear from regularly.
Mm-hmm.
But like one day I'm just thinking about my friend from Florida. He's a doctor. So I need to give him a call tomorrow. And before I literally could finish giving a call, the phone rang and it was him. And what is that? You know what I mean? Now, everybody, of course, the naysayers are going to go, well, that's just coincidence. But no, I had the thought, he had to be dialing as I had the thought because it rang when that thought was done and it was very spooky. And, I've multiple times contacted somebody and said, oh my gosh, how did you, I was just thinking of you. So there's something with that could possibly be, have us quantumly entangled with energies, which is very fascinating. When, not just families, but just, not just family members, but people that you're sort of really, seem to be connected to. What if we were quantumly entangled? What if we were, on a level that we just can't really understand, connected to other people and other brains? That would be fascinating to me. It seems like we may be.
I think there's good reason to believe that it could be true. And by the way, Albert Einstein agreed with your choice of words. You said it was spooky. That's exactly the word he used. Spooky action.
I stole that from Albert.
Yeah.
I stole that from Albert. But it is. It's just this odd, it doesn't make any sense. In fact, Max Planck, basically, a quantum physicist real early, he said, if you understand how do you word it? Like, if you think you understand quantum physics, it proves you don't understand quantum physics. Just there's no way to understand it. It's not comprehensible. It doesn't match anything that we know. That's what's fascinating about it. So this quantum entanglement concept is so fascinating to me.
Yeah, I think it was actually Niels Bohr, but nevertheless, the quote is accurate because
Niels Bohr said, okay, I was trying to recall it. Yeah, okay.
Because he was the philosopher type, Planck was.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. He's a little wacky too.
He was.
But,
he was a lot wacky.
Yeah.
One of the reasons we love him so much.
Yeah, that's why he's my favorite. So I'll use him for quotes when I don't even know if he really quoted it or not. But, so the idea that there was an experiment done, and this is one of my favorite experiments of resonance, which resonance and quantum entanglement seem to have a relationship. So, and I'll explain this. So there's the school was doing this, I forget which college was doing it, but they were doing a study, and they invited 100 people to the auditorium. And what they were claiming to be doing was they're going to be studying music and music's effect on the body.
Okay.
So everybody agreed to have, the ECG stuff hooked up to you and, brain monitors, and they had all these devices. All 100 people had those. And what they were going to be instructed to do is that when the music starts, we're going to measure all of this stuff and see how it affects your emotions and your chemistry or your heartbeat and blood pressure and all that. So that was not the experiment at all. That was explaining to get everybody on board, and they didn't want to tell them what the experiment was. So in the background, as we were waiting for this, it's like a 30-minute before it's going to start. They said, we're going to start in about 30 minutes. Just talk quietly amongst yourself. So there's a background, like a sort of a slight music, tiny, elevator kind of music stuff. But underneath that was this very distinct bump. I mean, like a heartbeat sounding kind of thing, like bump, bump. And so what they would do is, with all these people being monitored, they were actually monitoring the heart rate and to see how long or if it would get in coherence with the bumps or the beat. And so it was fascinating because as they were doing it, they would raise the beats, like instead of being at, like 70 beats, which is a normal heart rate. But it took about 10 minutes before the entire audience just almost became, there were a few exceptions, might have been because somebody had some heart problems, but most people came into coherence at that beat. And as they would increase the beat, the energy in the room would raise, and they would start talking louder and laughing, and then they would lower the beat and they would quiet. And they had no idea all this was going on. So in a room full of 100 people, they were able to get their heart rate in resonance. And I just think that's an amazing thing that we can influence it that way. So to me, that's sort of a concept that is a sister to quantum theory, quantum entanglement. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What you're talking about is the synchronicity of vibration.
Yes.
They've been able to observe the same thing with grandfather clocks. You have two grandfather clocks. Yes. And the pendulums are swinging out of sync with each other, and you just keep it for a while, and they'll be in sync with each other after a while. There's
a YouTube, what do you call those things that music students, that boom, 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 back and forth?
Yeah. What do you call it? Now I should know that because I'm a former musician. That is called it begins with an M. I can't remember what it's called.
Is it metrodrome or something?
Metronome.
Yeah. So anyway, there's tons of YouTube videos. Look these up, and they'll have 10 of those on a table, all out of sync. And within a little while, they all are perfectly synced. So
another example.
So I like that as a sort of an example. If that exists, it's akin to quantum entanglement. Does that make sense? Am I off base here?
No,
so
I think it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
go ahead.
It is worth noting that there are still people who, within the world of physics, who either discount or actually claim that these observations have been disproven. And there are a variety of reasons why they say that. The reason I say it's worth noting is I think it's basically it's a way of identifying how much resistance people have to the idea.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't so much that they've successfully proven or disproven anything, because the moment I hear the word proof or disproof in the same sentence as the word science, I know that we're talking about somebody who really doesn't understand science, because science doesn't prove or disprove anything. But the psychology behind it, the emotion behind the claim, even by scientists, that, it's been disproven, it says a lot about just how resistant we are to the idea that there can be these kinds of synchronicities, there can be these kinds of vibrational similarities going on, and that they can influence each other, especially at large distances. I mean, literally, these experiments that are being done that demonstrate a synchronicity between something going on here and something going on in Alpha Centauri at the same moment terrifies some physicists, because it basically breaks their world open. And that's sort of a microcosm version of what happens with society at large. Society at large, there are a lot more people today are very receptive to the idea of vibration and vibrational essence and similar vibration and so forth. But there's still a hardcore that resists it utterly, and they'll resist it to the death.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I was just going to say that resistance ultimately is what leads to not only a tremendous amount of resistance to the idea, but also to the resistance of how it's going to play out in one's own life. And that
of course
becomes really critical, because then you're basically like the driver sitting in the car at the steering wheel, not realizing that the steering wheel's in front of him, and then complaining that the car's driving all over the place.
Right. Well, and it, very much a similar concept, but the observer effect of that quantum theory suggests, it's a reverse play here. Because if you don't believe that this is real, if you're hardcore, this can't be right, which, you're literally going to get results. The observer effect will deliver those. One of with many experiments, over the years have shown results that's, actually match what the scientists actually believe. Mm-hmm. And it could be opposite results on the same thing, because the scientists believe opposite things. So that's all part of it to me. This is all related to this concept. And I love that. It basically makes no sense, which I love. Nothing needs to make sense.
It makes no sense, which I love. That's a great quote. That's the quote of the day right there.
Yeah. So, but it makes me fascinated, because it just shows that there's so much that we don't know. We're not going to figure out quantum entanglement in the brain, but I like the way tonight, at least. But we're not going to. What I do like about it is this: the explanation of why do some people have that connection when you're around and other people don't. That's where I wanted to go with that concept. And so you can become quantumly entangled. In theory, like I have people that I don't know why I like being around them. You know what I mean? I'm not really, I work, 40 hours a week, usually talking to people every single day. So me hanging out with people in my spare time is not one of my favorite things. I really enjoy some downtime, if that makes any sense. So, so if I have somebody I want to hang out with, there's a reason. It's like that, I don't like to do a lot, but there's some people I really will get up to go out with them. And because I'm really connected to them. And I'm always fascinated by that sort of that need, or that drive to do that. What is connecting me to people, like that? And it's just, I don't know. And I'm often wondering why, okay, well, this person asked you to do the same thing 2 nights ago. No, I don't want to do that. Like, yeah, I'm ready to go now. It's like, well, what happened? The energy that I get when I'm around certain people, I really love to be around. Other people's like, it's okay. I need to sit home and wait for that avocado to ripen.
For the avocado, right? but yeah, and what you're describing, I think, is a piece of a larger puzzle, or a larger mosaic, I guess is probably a better way of saying it, where we have people who are able to do things like, receive psychic messages, channel, mediums, all that kind of stuff. And I certainly counted myself for years in the camp that crossed my arms and sat back in my chair and nodded with my eyes rolling, saying, yeah, sure, whatever, until I started doing this show. And I've had a number of people who claim to be psychics and mediums and channelers on the show. And wouldn't you know it, they've actually demonstrated that they really know how to do this stuff. They really, I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of stuff you can't demonstrate one way or the other, whether there's truth behind it, but some things you can. One of the things that comes to my mind is former co-host Alex King was on the show at a time when another co-host, Rita Giganti, was on, and Rita started to pass some messaging along that she was getting about what was going on with Miss King's body. Basically, she was dealing with some medical issues. Now, at the time, she was dealing with certain medical issues, but not the ones that Rita was talking about.
Mm.
So I was kind of sitting back and I was saying, yeah, okay, well, she doesn't really know Alex, first of all, because those aren't the issues that Alex is dealing with. And, does Rita really know what she's doing? And I like Rita, so I wanted it to be true, but, there was that skeptical part of me that was saying, I don't know, this doesn't sound right. Well, turns out she was right in ways that we didn't even understand at the time, because at Alex's next doctor appointment, they started investigating a new set of findings that they didn't understand what they were and they hadn't seen them before. And sure enough, when they followed them through, they matched what Rita had said was going to be happening. So
Wow.
she actually anticipated what the doctors were going to find. That's not something that you can do through pre-planning or finding research or whatever.
Right.
And
Right.
So when I saw that and heard that and experienced that, I said, whoa, okay, she's getting something real there. I don't know how
Yes.
she's doing it. I don't know how all that works, but I'd be an idiot to say that that is coincidence.
I completely agree. And, I've always been the same way. When I first started listening to, Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks stuff, I was like, okay, whatever. I like the message. I'll just let this idea that some dude is talking to this lady, I sort of let that go. But over the years, I really believe there's something there. I really believe it. I was always good with the message is on point, no matter how it's delivered. I love the message. I find the message to be complete. So the message wasn't dependent on the source of it.
Yes.
And so I was a big believer for a long time where I was halfway going, I don't know if they're making this up. I don't know if she believes it. But over the years, and I've been adamant, follower there for many, many years. So I really believe it. I really do. I really believe that there is something there. Yeah, but it's irrelevant really for my message, which makes it even better because the message is so sound. I don't have to throw that message away just because she, is she really feeling that? Is she making it? I don't really care. It doesn't matter because we get to the same place, and there's a lot of other sources that support like the law of attraction that aren't from some channeled being. So, there's a lot of that stuff, so it's not needed. But I do agree with you, and that's where, the idea that we have far beyond 1993, the CIA investigated a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Law of attraction, remote viewing, and it's public record. Just, you got to Google it. 1993 CIA investigation into law of attraction. And they, when you hear that you'll hear them say, well, the report discounted all that stuff.
Right.
No, it doesn't. It gives credit. It says, look, we don't understand this. There's something to this, but the government used remote viewing to find people. If you know what remote viewing is, where you're sitting there and imagining, you're seeing somewhere around the world. Jimmy Carter, actually said we had a remote viewer that identified a downed plane that we had to find.
And the CIA was pissed that he said that, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so the idea that this stuff exists, it's all part of the same category, I believe. I think this is all part of the same category. And we haven't tapped into what we are capable of doing, the energy of the brain. When I have if we were in person, I have, like right now, when I hold my hand, if I concentrate a minute,
sure,
I can feel the heat I can make my hand hot.
Yeah.
And now technically I'm all 98.6 degrees, but somehow I could, so I could go up to somebody and do that. And they're like, oh my gosh, I feel that. And there's something about that connection and that heat that I can, make happen from my hand. Especially I have to like think about it, like hold it there, and then I hold it and it'll get hotter and hotter and hotter. I mean, not where I'm going to get burned or anything.
Right.
So there's something there. We have the ability to operate in a way that science has never completely agreed with. And as you said, a lot of times this stuff just scares people.
Yes.
It just scares people. I heard a guy on a YouTube channel the other day, and you never know these YouTube guys, that but they were making some sense on some stuff. They said, look, there's a lot of people that don't want us to know some of the things, because what if he said, I don't know why, but a lot of people are just scared because it goes against everything we've always considered science. Back in, was it Galileo? My history and all this is pretty sad, but Galileo is the one that is discovered that, is that the sun is in the middle and we're going around that? Was that him? Okay.
Yeah, him.
So the Catholic Church, would have put him to death if we had said that. You can't say that because the earth is the center. So, he waited until he was about to die and he told everybody. So it was like, and then they had to deal with that fact.
Yeah.
But they would argue back then, because it didn't match their narrative, that this is the center of everything and everything's going around Earth. Now, it doesn't seem like a big deal now, but back then, wow, that was shocking news.
Oh, that was heresy.
Yeah. And he let that out there. It's like, I love that we can question stuff like this today without being put to death, obviously. But what is it? What is all this? The quantum entanglement, the brain, it has to have a connection. I have always wondered when, I have, seen in what I refer to as a dream, but it was more than a dream. My son, TJ, who passed away, I've had conversations with him.
Right.
About
that.
Yeah. And it's different than the dream I had. I am convinced, for me, it's very real. We really talked, and that is something that, would sort of go to that entanglement. Our energies are entangled. Even he's transitioned to the non-physical, but our energies are still entangled and can still have these conversations. And I'm fascinated by that. And it feels very real to me. And I know the naysayers are going, Joel, you just dreamed it. And I get it, but this was different. I have crazy dreams. I've had a dream when Aunt Jemima, an alligator, are driving in a convertible. Don't know why. True story. I've had that dream. So that's a dream. But this thing with TJ was we were in conversation.
Yeah. And I know exactly what you're talking about when you say that. I had a very similar experience with my dad after he passed. I think that one of the most fascinating aspects of this is tied to the word that you used. You described the thought process of the naysayers as a narrative.
Yes.
And I think narrative is an excellent word to use, because from an LOA perspective, from a theoretical LOA perspective, we know that all of our experiences in life are the result of our narratives. Whatever the narrative is what produces, or the dominant narrative, I should say. Whatever the dominant narratives are, those are what produce similar like results. Those dominant narratives, they can drive you crazy, but they can also provide a way for you to develop your sense of belief. And the evidence of that is in the fact that the naysayers can so firmly and strongly believe that, this whole idea of brain entanglement and psychic abilities and all this is nonsense, to the point where you can't even get them to consider any possibility. Their belief is so strong simply because they have played this narrative over and over and over again. And then there are going to be people like us who do exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
We can keep playing our narrative, and our narrative keeps saying, yes, this is all real, and it becomes very real for us to the point where we're 100% sure it's real. And we're both doing the same thing. We're doing the exact same thing as the naysayers. We are creating a narrative, believing the narrative, building the belief over time by repeating that narrative, repeating. My goodness. We're a lot more the same than we are different, even though we have different viewpoints.
Well, yeah, it's the same coin, just different sides. And for me, and I tell people, I feel there's nothing that has changed my life more than law of attraction. I believe it has changed everything for me. I have an incredible life, and I believe that. I operate with that theory. So I don't know do I just believe it so strong that it is true for me? It's possible. I'm not trying to rule out anything. If you don't believe it's going to work for you, I don't know if it's still work. I don't know all that. I just know for me, I accept this as fact, and amazing things just keep happening. In fact, I don't even have to try anymore. These happen. Just things happen. It's just, I don't have any of the things I used to struggle with, trying to use the law of attraction. It's just, it automatically is provided and it's easy. And, again, but I can also make the argument, well, I'm expecting great things to happen. And so they're happening. Well, that's sort of the law of attraction. I mean, it all goes together. It all goes together. And I do believe that people that don't believe it's any way possible to help, and they're just stuck where they're stuck, they're going to be stuck where they're stuck, and it won't work for them, which it is working, but it's working in a different way. It's working because it's just, you're not believing it's going to work.
Well, I think it probably goes a little bit further than that. I think actually it does work, in their lives in ways that are consistent with their beliefs, but also that are inconsistent with their beliefs, because no one is 100% consistent. I mean, I don't care how strong an advocate you are on this particular issue. There are going to be other things in life having nothing to do with science, having nothing to do with physics or whatever. And you're indicating to me that you don't hear me. You don't hear me. This is not a good thing. What just happened? So let me just make sure I am broadcasting here. I'm going to do a little audio test. Yep, my mic seems to be working, but for some reason you're not hearing me. I don't know. I'm not sure how to proceed here, because I know normally there's three of us. I'll send you a private chat, because we have a private chat we can send through. Normally there are ways for us to double check, because we have 3 people on the show, but we only do 2 here on the Tuesday nights. So I'm not sure how we can double check this. I'm going to just send a little note to Joel. So I can send him that message, but I'm going to ask him to try to log in again. And I think he's seeing the messages that I'm sending him. So, yeah, he's going to try logging out and logging in. Hopefully that's going to take care of it. Oh, my goodness. We haven't had a technical issue like this in a long time on the show, but now all of a sudden we're getting it. And the real test is going to be after we're done recording. Can I actually hear my voice here? We'll find that out later. But I was commenting just earlier today at doing another episode that we just published. And in that episode, I commented that we do these things. We record these episodes without editing anymore. I used to edit them because I wanted to make sure everything was nice and clean. And like my guest and I this morning observed, it's actually a lot more fun when it's not that clean and hard to figure out. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. So I think it was working. It just, you weren't actually receiving it at your end. So I think the reboot took care of it. We'll just kind of assume it did.
Yes, we'll assume that.
Now, the hard part is I have no idea where I was in my comments. So you're going to have to tie me
in. We were talking about you said, well, actually, I think it does work, and not in the way, we were talking about the law of attraction not working, and you said, I do think it works. It's just not how it's intended or something. And then I lost you totally.
Yeah. Well, I think what I was trying to say, and probably just as well that it cut out, because I don't think I was saying it well before. So let me try again. But what I was trying to say is that even those who are in the belief system that it doesn't work, that it can't work, and that there's no evidence to suggest that it does work, in other areas of their lives, they prove that it works anyway.
Yeah.
And which I think is a fascinating thing. I believe that they don't actually make the conscious connection themselves. They don't recognize the connection going on. They don't recognize the evidence. They see it as all being, quote, purely coincidental, unquote.
Yes.
And I say that because that's what I used to believe. I used to believe in pure coincidences. I no longer believe in pure coincidences. I don't think there's any such thing as a pure coincidence anymore, meaning a coincidence that is not connected. The two pieces aren't connected to each other. I believe that everything is connected now. But
Yes.
20 years ago, I did not believe that. So I can identify with where they're coming from. And yet, if somehow they were willing or able to look at other areas of their lives and ask themselves, are phenomena like this playing out in my life? It might take some hard, cold honesty to get there, but I think they'd find it actually is.
Yeah. I completely agree. It's just one of those things that you get so buried in beliefs. Here's a story that happened today. It's a very long story of how I got there, so I'm not going to give it to you. But I had to go to this mobile home park. I didn't even know we had mobile home parks around here.
Oh, okay.
I've never seen it. So I'm looking for a client, a rental place. Long story, doesn't matter. So I go into this mobile home park, and it is, rough. I mean, it's just
Sure.
not, we live in a relatively affluent area, and it's just shocking that this is sort of right here.
Right.
And as I'm driving through this mobile home park, there's a lady, young lady, probably early 20s, maybe 25. And she has two little kids, and they're walking, and it's just they're there. And I ask, as I'm talking to her, I'm just the kids are dirty, and it just very sad. The scenario looks very sad. I don't know any backstory or anything. So I asked her where the office was, and she was very nice. And she said, well, it's over there, but the guy doesn't, he works during the day, so you'll have to get hold of him online. I said, thank you. And I don't know why. I said, I just, clearly her life is, not in whatever's going on. It's just not living optimally, I guess, is the way to look at it now. So I had $50. I never carried cash, but I had $50, and I just handed it to her. I said, here you go. And she's like, well, what's that for? I just feel like I wanted to share that with you today. And I said, no strings attached. And she said, did God send you? And I go, maybe. I said, possibly, but I just want to be able to help you. She said, this is never, did you drive in here to hand me? I said, I didn't know you existed. And more than anything, I just was compelled, like, wow. And so I told her, I said, I believe, very much in a concept called the law of attraction. And, I don't have one of the books now, but if you're interested in that, I'll pick one up and drop it off that sort of explains that. I said, but, more than anything, if you don't want to read it, that's fine. There's $50. I hope it helps with something. She goes, my food stamps don't come for another day. This is literally a miracle. And I said, well, I'm glad that we could provide that miracle. So, and then she was at least kind enough to go, and I'm not going to read that book. And I go, okay, that's fine too. So drop off the money. So this event happened today. Now, that exact moment in time, I made a split second decision to go to that mobile home park at that moment because I happened to be right down the road. And for her to be walking at that exact same moment, for me to ask that question, that's a lot of things. So, I didn't set out today to help her. And as I said, the only reason I even have cash is I got cash yesterday because I wanted to tip people. Today, the only time I ever carry cash is to tip people. So long story short, I left, and I had to be like, what are the odds of that encounter? And, I did leave her my business card and said, look, I could hook you up with some services if you're not getting them. Be glad to help you in any way. And I think she's just baffled why this guy drove up and handed her $50 and didn't want anything, just left. So to her, it was a miracle. Her perception was a miracle. And to me, it was just like, that was just, Monday. That's what Monday is, but it's just her perspective, good things don't happen. I mean, she clearly, I don't know the chain of events that led her there, but it can't be good. It's not a good trajectory, I'm sure.
I personally have to agree with her. I think it is a miracle. I think quantum entanglement is a miracle.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, did all that happen? I mean, that's, I know we're getting theoretical here, but that could
We've
be a
been
theory.
theoretical for years. This is nothing
Yeah,
new.
yeah, yeah, that's right. But you know, I look at timing. You know, uh, I went to the gym. I ate lunch. I stopped at the grocery store.
Mm,
I said, "Oh, I'm not far from that mobile home park. Let me just zip over there." So
yeah.
I'm driving around. In fact, I had to text a friend because I didn't know how to get into the mobile home park. It, it was not as easy as it seemed. But I was able to get in there. She told me how to get in. And when I ran into this lady, so our meeting today was built on a bunch of little nuances to put me at that exact moment where I could roll down my window and ask where the office was.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I
That's
mean,
very cool.
yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to take it a step further, although I can't because that would require a conversation with her. But I'd like to ask her if it was, I know that she needed the money for the food. She didn't have enough money from the food stamps. But I want to ask her, were you at all focusing your attention recently on what am I going to do to get money? Somehow I have to get the money or somehow I have to get the food so I can feed my family or whatever. Were you focused on that at all? Because I gotta believe she was. I mean, that was a big part of what was going on in her life.
I can't imagine being a young mother with two kids. Again, I have no idea about her scenario, but where they were living, clearly were not, you know, financially secure. And I can't imagine her thoughts with 2 or 3 days left before her EBT card, gets filled, that she was in any way not thinking about food.
I would
She has two
think.
little babies. I mean,
Yeah.
I just can't imagine. And, so it's not, I just am more fascinated by the meeting. I'm fascinated by the chain of events that put me at that exact moment.
Hmm.
I just thought it was just fascinating the whole time. And so I thought
It
about
is.
it all day, and it broadly meets our topic today because there, you know, is there some type of entanglement that would somehow direct me to that moment?
I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
fact, I'll bring out another thing that has been fascinating to me for quite some time. And that is the phenomenon that we're all familiar with, where a generation of people, kids, well, we'll assume from the moment that they're in their kid level until they become adults. So let's divide into 20-year periods. That's the way, you know, the sociologists usually divide them up. So for every 20-year grouping of people compared to the next 20-year grouping, the next generation is always smarter. They
Yeah.
always know more. And they seem to know more not because they went to school better or because they learned, they seem to know it even before they go to school. Now, it's especially been happening a lot since the advent of modern technology, but this happened also before technology. This has been going on for generations. It's been going on for centuries. And I don't think there's really a whole lot of doubt that it has been very consistent, one generation to the next. The next generation is always smarter, knows more. It's like there's a collection of information, a collection of knowledge that's being transferred from one generation to the next. Now, the obvious answer that everyone would want to latch onto as to why that's happening is, well, it's passed along genetically. But the problem is we now know that the human genome really is only capable of a finite amount of information that's transferred. In fact, there's a whole lot that goes on that really goes on beyond what's going on in the genome.
Of course.
So once again, I'm asking, well, then where's the information transfer happening? And as far as I can see, there are no physical processes in terms of what we generally understand as a physical process that explain it. To me, that means there has to be some sort of a quantum explanation. I can't think of any other way for it to happen.
I agree, completely agree. And there's been a lot of research in that whole field about, you know, the stuff, not only the stuff that is quote unquote pre-installed, so to speak. They don't know how necessarily it's pre-installed, but sort of the evolution of that pre-installation information. It gets better, as you're saying. We have more information. You have more. Evolution would support traumas that, you know, learning from traumatic events, learning from different things. So evolution would support that. how it's beyond the, the genomes that we know. Like you said, they're very limited in what they can do. It's not that it's being delivered through, but it's that stuff that is already pre-installed. It's the pre-installed software, so to speak. How is that being downloaded? And that's the million. Nobody has answered that adequately yet.
Yeah, I agree. Not even inadequately.
Yeah.
They haven't really come close at all to answering.
Yeah. But it is a fascinating whole concept for that. But it all is in this same arena. The idea that, when the basic stuff, which, the instincts of animals, when certain animals are born walking, certain animals are born swimming, they're just born and they know all this stuff already. It's just, that a lot of that isn't explained in their genetics, but there's been an evolution of that as well. There's been, some zoo somewhere, and this baby chimpanzee, pretty young, was, they were digging this hole. Like this chimpanzee takes the stick and starts digging. And they're like, how the other ones weren't using a tool. This chimpanzee started using a tool like at a few months old. And they're like, where did that come from? Chimpanzee's been taught to do that, but nobody ever did that to this. But yet somehow it realized, let's use this to do this, Then the other ones went and picked up a stick and did it. It's like, okay, something's going on here.
Yeah, I think one of the least well-defined scientific concepts I've ever heard is the concept of instinct, because that's where we get that word from. All we understand about instinct derives from the world of science.
Yes,
and it is badly defined. In many cases, it's not defined at all. It's assumed a priori. Well, instinct exists, and that's all we need to know. Which is, boy, talk about defaulting on responsibility. What scientist would actually want to default on that? And yet they do. They do.
Well, they don't want to not know the answer, so it's better to pick something and say, oh, it's instinct.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess that's what it is. It's an ego factor, a pride factor.
Clearly.
But I mean, talk about something that needs to be investigated. Instinct. You want to open up a whole new field of science, an area of science? There it is right there.
Yeah. I would love for there to be a brand new area of science that would incorporate instinct, all the stuff we normally talk about, and the placebo effect. I wish we just created a science for that. Wouldn't it be great if there was a whole new branch of science to look at all that stuff? Because the placebo effect is built into this too. I could make the connection with the placebo.
Go for it. Draw the connection.
Yeah, because it is, I shared in one of our episodes, along the way, I have a friend in Florida that, was diagnosed with, liver cancer. And I got the call, and I'll give the short version of that. I got the call, and very good friends. So I was up here. They were down there. I flew down. I said, and I couldn't get down there for a week. And that was when they went to the original appointment and said, look, you have liver cancer. It looks like it's pretty advanced. And they got him to the oncologist that following Friday. I went down there, and when they were in there forever, I was sitting in there a lot. There was just no communication. I thought they'd taken him to emergency surgery. My brain created all these scenarios. Sure. Well, they come out after about 5 hours, and I go, why were you in there so long? They said, well, they kept doing scans, and they kept drawing blood, and they kept doing scans. And finally the doctor came in and said, you don't have anything wrong with you. We don't know how this all got mixed up, but you're fine. Now, the part of the story that I didn't tell is he had lost 19 pounds in a few days. He was great. His body was responding as if he had stage 4 liver cancer.
Yes.
But so there is that concept of the nocebo effect. I can't say it right now. But placebo effect, all that goes together. It's the same thing. So his body was responding to a belief, and he would have probably, I don't know if he would have died, but it was on his way to dying until he was told he didn't have it. And then, he couldn't eat before that. We went to Chipotle, had a huge bowl, and wouldn't lift a weight. So but it's amazing how that happened. And so placebo effect, when you believe something is going to make you well, it does. And so many times, we've discussed this 100 times, but I think it's all the same category here. I really do.
The phrase that comes to my mind comes from the non-LOA world, mind over matter. It's used to explain a lot of things. Basically, it's used to explain things the way that the person doing the explaining can't explain. That's the way it's most often used.
Right.
But the thing that's amazing to me is how freaking accurate it is.
It is. It is.
That just describes exactly what's going on here. It's the mind over the matter. The mind is controlling the matter. It goes right back to the double slit experiment you were talking about. When the mind pays attention, when there's a conscious awareness paying attention, the location of the molecule is different, or the electron, I guess it is. Like molecule or electron, I can't remember which. But the location is different because of conscious attention. That's the part that, I don't fully grasp. I kind of do, but I don't fully grasp how it is that any physicist can know that is true and dismiss it. I know they can. I've seen them do it. I'm aware that they can do it. They find ways to say, oh, well, it's just a misinterpretation of the way physics actually works. They have different kinds of explanations for it. But bottom line is, how do they actually, within themselves, justify dismissing that experiment? Because that experiment is mind-blowing.
Yes. I'm mind blown right now. Yes, it is, but that's sort of the point. You have people that will defend it's like religion, and don't want to get too deep in that because I can go off the deep end there too. But a lot of people can't logically discuss religion because they feel attacked if you're going to challenge any of their beliefs. Where I love discussing all the concepts. I really do. It's just fascinating to me. The idea that all this sort of goes together, same thing. A lot of people don't want their core beliefs attacked, and
that's right.
And they'll defend it, and they'll defend it get a little bit off the rails here. It is. I'm like you. You and I are a lot alike politically. I don't like any of these clowns on any level that run. So I don't take a side. But I will tell you this: when I posted something and it was misinterpreted by Facebook about being about COVID, and it was not anything to do with COVID, but they blocked me because they thought it was about COVID. I was like, so we get to a place, and when you can't have a discussion, I don't want to disagree. I like to discuss things. I like to discuss science. I like to discuss theory. But you get to a place where you can only say one thing, and anything other than that, you can't discuss, and it's monitored and blocked. I'm not a conspiratorialist in that sense. I'm not anti-vaxxer. I just would like to understand concepts, and you can't discuss them if it doesn't go to the exact narrative, or they'll shut you down.
Yeah. Well, to me, the really interesting part of that, because that is playing out often, it's now getting to the point where there is more than one poll. There's more than one viewpoint that is being enforced in that way.
Yeah.
So, for instance, you have Elon Musk, who bought up Twitter and turned it into X. And he's doing his own thing over there, which is different from the way that Facebook is doing their thing, which is different from the way somebody, they all have their own little thing that they're doing, often at loggerheads with each other.
Yes.
And where I'm sitting, I'm saying, this isn't the end of that. This is the beginning of that. Like, there's going to be a whole lot more of that. So we're going to have a whole lot of people and organizations and belief systems and so forth saying, no, this is the only way to think. Yours can't even be allowed. We must banish it. And after a while, this just becomes ludicrous, because was everybody going to banish everything?
Well, that's the thing. You can't. You get so limited in what you say because you have to filter, because there are just certain topics that will shut you down. I'm not always.
Linus from Peanuts fame, he knew that. He said there are three things that you can't talk about: religion, politics, and the Great Pumpkin. Yeah,
exactly. And we all know that Great Pumpkin story, but that's exactly right, Walt. So, and this is where this all comes about. So, you get people at a double slit experiment. If you don't know what that is, I really wish you'd take the time, our audience, to just Google that. And there's countless examples. This has been replicated a million times. It's just, and it's just as baffling to me every time. But it makes no sense. In fact, it makes so little sense. I can't believe that that's not one of the biggest topics we always are talking about. It's like, when you observe these light particles, they behave differently when we're watching them when we're not watching them. Mm-hmm. Is that not the wildest, just that one piece, is that the wildest thing that we know as a fact? I mean, it just seems so, how does that happen? How does that happen? I don't know.
To me, it's exciting, actually.
It is. Oh, of course. Yeah.
It's
because
exciting.
we can't explain. Yeah.
Well, not only can we not explain it, but we can theorize on it. We may not be able to explain it, but it sets the mind off to explore all kinds of possible fantasies at that point.
Yes.
Because basically what that experiment says is our minds affect our lives. Our minds affect what's going on around our lives. In fact, there are minds that are affecting us. We don't even see the minds. We don't even are aware necessarily that the minds are there, and they're affecting our lives, and we're affecting their lives. In fact, there are lives that we didn't even realize are lives.
Okay.
It starts, I mean, literally, it just starts to just go out of control after a
while. It does. But that's, to me, those are the things I'm into. So I'm always studying these things. I'm always, I like the discussion. I like the spooky. I like the stuff that doesn't make sense. I'm not anywhere of these, physicists that can figure this. I'm not claiming to have that level of expertise. I'm just a layman that really enjoys looking at all this. And that's why I get back to quantum, the double slit experiment to me is basically the science of the law of attraction in play. Yes. Because what it's saying is what you observe, what you're expecting it to do, it will do when you're observing it. And when you're not peeking at it, it does whatever the hell it wants to do.
Yes, well said. It does whatever the hell it wants to do.
Yeah. And again, we're talking light. We're not talking about something so where does that come from? Is it our energy toward it affecting that? And that's going to be something that I will not live long enough for it ever be totally or even explained at all. And a lot of scientists don't have the ability to say, we just don't know. So they'll just ramble on for hours about it. But at the end of the day, we don't really know. That's what they're saying.
Well, I can mess with our heads one step further. Of course, there's lots of ways to mess with our heads, but I'm going to do it one step further here on the phrase that it doesn't make sense. Because that's the phrase we use, right? To describe, well, it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
Here's the odd part. It does make sense. We just don't believe our senses.
Right.
Exactly. Telling us that this is what's happening. If it wasn't for the sense, we wouldn't know this was going on.
I love the statement, we cannot, when you hear somebody say, well, that breaks the laws of physics. No, nothing can break the laws of physics. It's just we're misunderstanding the laws of physics. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. We have an arrogance that we have completely figured it out. So when we say, well, that's breaking the laws of physics. No, the physics are the physics. It's just we don't understand the physics.
I think what it does do is that it breaks the principle of science.
Yes.
Science. This is why I always like to point to the fact that science never proves or disproves anything. Science is a data gathering enterprise.
Right.
You gather data and then you theorize about it. And then you test your theories by gathering more data, and then you theorize based on that, and you gather more data. It's an ongoing thing. That's the way science works. Anyone who talks in terms of proof or disproof is basically saying, I don't trust the science. I don't trust scientific methodology. I don't trust it because I feel like I have a need to nail this set of evidence down in this particular way. Otherwise, I can't feel comfortable.
Yes.
But that's anti-science.
It is. It is. And that the stuff that takes place, I was talking to a gentleman the other day that, he's a neuroscientist, and he tried, did a therapeutic psilocybin experience.
Ooh, we haven't brought psilocybin in for a while. Cool.
Yeah. Well, it fits right in with this category here in a second. So So this is a really brilliant neuroscientist, and we've had many discussions about, and he is classical neuroscience. So,
Okay.
never really wanted to, he agreed with neuroplasticity, he agreed with, but like my law of attraction stuff is like, he's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Great.
Phil.
Yes.
Yeah, he's like,
Yeah.
okay. He'll smile and pat me on the head. And he's the one that actually said, Joel, the only reason it works for you is you believe it works for you. And I go, exactly.
Oh, I love that story.
Yeah. So, we were good friends. He's just like, God, that you set me up for that one. I go, no, you set yourself up. But, I said, that is exactly that. Yes. Thank you for supporting me. But so we were just, so he did this so in the middle of his, by the way, if you're ever going to do a therapeutic experiment, and again, please do it under the guide of somebody who knows what they're doing. Never text anybody during that experience because you'll regret the text. So just saying.
I can hardly imagine.
Yeah. So in the middle of his experience, and I knew he was doing it that night, so I saw the text come up and go, oh boy, well, I can't wait to see what's about to come out. He goes, everything you've ever said is true.
Wow.
And I go, oh my gosh. And he said, it was all been revealed to me. Now, after he came out of it, he goes, well, I might have to retract that. He said, but I do.
That's all right.
Yeah. I said, no, I got it in writing. So you already know it's true. But the idea that once his mind was opened up under the influence of the psilocybin, where everything's functioning at once, the full functioning of the brain is taking place, and neuroplasticity at its highest, he saw that. He saw that connection. He said it in his text that it makes complete sense what you're saying.
Wow.
I've never seen it before now. And he's changed. I mean, he's like, I do admit there's something now there, but he's getting there. But
Yeah.
in the middle of it, and I told him, I said, never text me when you're doing that because you're going to regret what you say. You're always going to regret it. It's like, that's one of my first pieces of advice is like, if it seems like a good idea to text anybody anything, it'll be a good idea in the morning when this is over. So Don't do it in the middle. Trust me. I came so close a few times.
We'll have to save that story for another day. I
can't
imagine what that story is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's hilarious. But it goes, all of that opens up to that same thing we don't know the power of the mind. We know you got this big fatty thing full of, that brain up there and it's just gooey and all this, but that's just the sort of the housing. The intricacies and the neural pathways and all the stuff that made them work and what drives it. We espouse a lot of this stuff, but it's not anywhere near, we're not anywhere close to really understanding it, which is fascinating.
And it leaves all kinds of possibilities for science to explore as the years to come. It's going to be fun to watch that journey. Even if we're having to put up with all the resistances and the endpoints and this is the final proofs, we'll have to put up with that stuff. But the scientific journey itself, that goes on. And that one's going to be very, very cool. As has been this conversation. This conversation has been great.
It's good. I love it. I love when we get way down the rabbit holes and just go all over the place. Today was fantastic for that. As always, I really love doing the show and look forward to next week.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it as well. So we will thank you all for listening and see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.